CrossTalk, where all things are considered. I'm Peter Lavelle. For over a year, we've heard nonstop that somehow, in some way, Trumpworld colluded with Russia to win the presidential election, though we have yet to see any evidence of this. However, it appears more likely it was the Democratic Party that did the colluding. CrossTalking, who actually colluded. I'm joined by my guest, Biro in Atlanta. He is a former Obama campaign regional director. In Los Angeles, we have H.A. Goodman. He is a columnist and journalist published in the Huffington Post, Salon, The Hill, and other publications. And in London, we cross to Alexander Mercouris. He's a writer on legal affairs, as well as the editor-in-chief of theduran.com. All right, gentlemen, CrossTalk rules in effect. That means you can jump in anytime you want, and I always appreciate it. H.A., I always go to you first because you get up earliest first for this program. I hope you had your coffee. Here we go. H.A., it seems that the news flow here, though you won't see it too much in the liberal media, that there's more and more evidence that there was collusion, but it's more the Democratic Party. And there's so many different things to talk about. The Fusion GPS dossier, which now it's become evident that the Democrats actually paid for it. The FBI offered, we don't know for sure if they actually paid Christopher Steele for continued information being developed in this dossier. And then we have the whole Uranium One thing. And there's a lot to cover here, gentlemen. H.A., where is this going here? Because it seems like it's kind of flipping upside down. The more they look at this, the more it goes into a different direction. Go ahead, H.A.
Well, I have a book out on Amazon, and it's #1 in this category. It's called Debunking the Trump-Russia Myth. First of all, the DNC never gave its computer servers to the FBI. After numerous requests, the DNC kept its computer servers, the most important piece of information, in an alleged hack. So the DNC never gave its computer servers to the FBI. They relied on one firm, CrowdStrike. Imagine if Trump said, well, I'm going to just rely on one firm, and U.S. foreign policy has to be based on what this corporation states. CrowdStrike had to backtrack on its initial assessment. So when you hear the intelligence community say, well, you know, there's an assessment and they're moderately to highly confident, there's only 3 agencies, the FBI, CIA, and NSA.
Right.
The FBI and CIA are highly confident. The NSA is moderately confident. When asked for direct evidence, James Clapper, Dianne Feinstein, Maxine Waters, Jackie Speer, even Jay Johnson, former Secretary of Homeland Security, has stated there is no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. There's no evidence the DNC was hacked. There's no evidence at all that WikiLeaks worked with Russia, because they didn't. This is what took place. It was a leak, not a hack. There's actually evidence of a leak. We know from the work of Elizabeth Voss, an amazing journalist at Disobedient Media, cybersecurity analyst, the forensicator, and Adam Carter. We know that Bill Binney, Ray McGovern, veteran intelligence professionals for sanity have stated, these are former intelligence officials, that it was a leak, not a hack, primarily because of the download speeds.
I know you know your stuff, and I agree with you because you've been on here before. Let me go to Robin here and kind of gets this story a little bit closer to the present here. I mean, now we have reports coming out, and the floodgates are opening here. When we look at like Paul Manafort, you know, Mueller, he was very interested on this character. He was the former chairman of the Trump campaign at the very beginning of the campaign. And now there's evidence that, you know, he was working very closely with the Podesta brothers, and that they are the ones that had a lot more contact with Russian entities. And this is kind of, you know, mushrooming here. I know you won't hear it on CNN, but, you know, what about this here? Because, you know, now, you know, people are saying the Trump team colluded with the Russians, but now you look at the Democrats, oh, they were just looking for opposition research. You see how they kind of switched the word there? Go ahead, Robin.
It's funny when you say opposition research, because it takes me back to Don Trump Jr. when he said that to debunk the Trump-Russia myth. So I'm definitely not going to say the same thing because I would look ridiculous. But what I will say is that I disagree. I know that H.A. is subject matter expert on this. He probably knows a lot more about this than I did because he published a book. But I do think it's disingenuous to say that there's no evidence right now, because these meetings are occurring behind closed doors. We're not privy to the information that's coming out. And these investigations are so wide range in scope. I just want to remind you, look at what happened back in the 90s with the investigation into Bill Clinton. And that started off as an investigation into Whitewater, a land deal. And we ended up all the way with Monica Lewinsky.
Right. It ended up with the blue dress. Okay. Alexander, one of the things that I find very, very disturbing here, and I would really want to know the truth here. Okay, that's really what I'm interested in here. I don't carry for water for Trump. I could care less about Hillary Clinton, but I would really like to know what's happening here, because I think media journalism is so dirtied its hands and its reputation and all this. And another thing that I really worry about is that look at the people that are involved with this so-called Trump collusion story, and almost every single person to a character was involved in the uranium run story, which is still kind of developing as well. There was a cover-up on that. You have an informant that was gagged. I think as we speak, that gag order is being rescinded. I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of corruption in the state here, and if it's the FBI, they're the ones that are covering up for some people. I find that really disturbing. That's even far worse than quote-unquote collusion, because there's no evidence of it yet. Go ahead, Alexander.
Yeah, well, can I first of all deal with the question of collusion in the election? What we now have is an admission from the Democratic National Committee, or rather we've had an admission, that in fact it was the DNC that ultimately paid for the dossier that was produced, which made all kinds of salacious allegations about Donald Trump. That dossier is said to have been produced on the basis of information coming out of Russia. In other words, Russians were involved in making it. That is collusion, if you like, between the DNC and people in Russia, and it is targeting Donald Trump.
And British intelligence, also British intelligence.
Indeed, indeed. So we actually now do have evidence of collusion with Russia, but it is pointing in the other direction. Now, if we turn to Uranium One, of course, this was not about the election. It happened before. It's a very tangled story about Russians buying a uranium company. There's been all kinds of allegations of bribery, of corruption, of this being kept under the carpet.
There were prosecutions as well. There were prosecutions as well. Let's keep that in mind.
And plea bargains. In other words, people pleaded guilty. Nonetheless, this thing was waved through. And there are allegations that some of the people involved paid money into the Clinton Foundation. All very interesting, all very worrying. To my mind, it is a sign of the sort of things that naturally go on in the world. There is corruption out there.
Yeah, okay.
There is corruption
let me go to H.A.
Lots of people.
Got great talkers there. H.A. here, I'm going to be very agnostic about this here, okay? Influence peddling is universal. Everybody does it. And, when you talk about somebody bribing someone, well, there's always that person that takes it, too. Let's not forget about the other party here. What I worry about, I don't care about Hillary Clinton. I think she's been corrupt for decades. That's my personal opinion. The fact that this happened isn't a really big surprise. What does surprise me or worries me is that you have state agencies covering this up for political purposes and ultimately to overturn a democratic election in the United States. Go ahead, H.A.
Well, when you take a step back, the interesting thing about the Democratic Party blaming Russia is that the DNC cheated Bernie Sanders. This all stems from the DNC cheating its most popular candidate and losing $1.2 billion with Hillary Clinton. Clinton outspent Trump 2-1. She then lost the election. Then you have allegations or accusations of Trump working with Russia to hack the DNC. There's zero evidence of that. And then when you look, like you said, when you investigated, there was a bribery and racketeering scandal. The FBI actually convicted somebody for 48 months, a Russian energy official, while Hillary Clinton sat on the Committee on Foreign Investment with Eric Holder. They signed off on the deal of 20% of U.S. uranium capacity. Then the defenders say, well, you know, Uranium One doesn't have the export license. In the New York Times article, the trucking companies were shipping yellow cake uranium, which could be used for an atomic weapon, outside the U.S. into Canada. Uranium One was using the export license of the trucking companies to ship uranium outside of the United States while President Obama was in office. Right. This was all during the time that the Clinton Foundation received millions of dollars from Uranium One officials, and Bill Clinton met with Vladimir Putin.
And got $500,000 for making a speech, okay? You know, Robin, let me go to you. Robin, let me give to you. I mean, we found out just recently, we all knew about the Uranium One deal. That's not the surprise here. But it's the seemingly, allegedly, a cover-up to keep this story wrapped up and gagging someone not to be able to speak about it. I mean, Congress has the right to speak to anyone they want, and hopefully that will be resolved. And again, like I said, get the truth out. I mean, let the chips fall where they are. Go ahead, Robin. Does this bother you that we have this kind of cover-up going on? Go ahead.
What bothers me is that Russia was not licensed to take this uranium outside of the United States. So initially this was a safe deal, but this uranium did end up outside of the United States. We need to find out how, because this was blessed off on by CFIUS under the Attorney General, under the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Commerce, Energy Secretary,
Robin,
and Homeland Security, and
but
others.
You're just confirming what I think we're all saying here. There are laws, and they're being broken here. Okay?
Yes.
This deal went through after
this
deal went through. It was signed off by all those people there, and they knew there was illegality going on. They know where crimes were being committed, but they signed off on it anyway. And oh, by the way, Hillary Clinton got a lot of money for her foundation. Quid pro quo. All right, gentlemen, I have to go to a hard break, and after that hard break, we'll continue our discussion on who actually colluded. Stay with RT. Let me go back to Alexander in London. I mean, I brought up, British meddling, interference in the U.S. election here. That's against the law. And I think everybody knows that, okay? A foreign country. Now, everybody likes to paint Russia in the darkest pictures, okay? I've lived here for 20 years. I mean, it's just nonsense. But anyway, that's how these narratives work here. I mean, but I thought Britain was our U.S. friend here. And, the allegations made in this dossier, which some people still give credence to, there was no verification of it. I mean, Christopher Steele, it looks like he was on the money train. I mean, they keep wanting more and more. He actually came here to Moscow. Oh, I bet they sold him a lot of stuff because they got paid for it too. I mean, everybody was making money here. And then at the face of it, you look at it. I mean, I remember when James Comey, oh Lord, you remember him. I mean, he gave me the impression that he actually believed the dossier. That is what I think is really astounding. Go ahead, Alexander.
Well, it is astounding, and what is actually not just astounding but also very interesting is that the two foundation reports of the whole Russiagate scandal, the report into the hacking by CrowdStrike and this report, the Trump dossier that we are just talking about, were both paid for and commissioned by the DNC. But coming back to the British role, I think there are a lot of questions to answer. There are reports that Christopher Steele gained permission from the British government, from the British authorities, to contact the US authorities, that this went all the way up to 10 Downing Street, that all sorts of people within the intelligence services and the Foreign Office and probably the Cabinet Office were involved as well. We don't have very much information about this. But again, if we are talking about foreign involvement by an outside power in the United States election in order to affect the course of that election, then that is obviously a matter of concern. And may I say, there are other countries too which were also interested in the election. frankly, if I have to say what I think,
don't forget
Russia seems to have been the one that was least involved.
Well,
in
people
respects.
forget about Ukraine as well. I mean, it's amazing the short attention span people have here that would definitely have a political interest. You know, H.A., one of the things, again, I'm looking, and I've been doing this, unfortunately, for a year. I hate this story because there's not much to chew on, and, well, except for the last maybe 2 or 3 days where actually people have broken the law, people have been put in prison, people have made plea deals. I mean, real things you can talk about here. But H.A., one of the things I find very disturbing is that the FBI outsourced, at least on 2 occasions, CrowdStrike and with this dossier. I mean, when does the FBI start doing that kind of thing? I've never, ever heard of it. The CIA does it all the time. I've never heard of the FBI doing this. Go ahead.
Well, the unbelievable aspect of all of this is that the United States government, the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, the same people who use disclaimers. So there are 2 reports, one from the Department of Homeland Security and one from ODNI. They all have disclaimers, warranty disclaimers, stating the information within these reports accusing Trump and WikiLeaks should not be taken. There's no guarantees within. Should not be taken as fact. There's no guarantees within the report. The reality is that WikiLeaks is a publisher. The DNC and Podesta emails were published. They have their sources, just like the Washington Post or New York Times have their sources. The corrupt words of Donna Brazile, Hillary Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz did them in. They typed the words on DNC computers and Clinton campaign and Podesta computers. Instead of the Democratic Party saying, my goodness, we cheated Bernie Sanders, we deceived Bernie Sanders voters of $200 million, then used that money to pay Fusion GPS and CrowdStrike, instead of saying we have to clean house and we have to change the way we conduct our affairs, they doubled down. They then blamed Russia with 0 evidence, and I call it a giant group therapy session. People who voted for Clinton want something to believe, and they can't possibly admit that Hillary Clinton was a failed candidate and wasted $1.2 billion. So they blame Russia.
Hillary Clinton lost to a reality TV host. It's really extraordinary here. Let me go to Robin.
And she outspent him 2-1.
Well, and the media was completely on her side. Okay, we all know that here. Robin, again, I want to get to the kind of the structural things here. If you look at the people that were involved in the Uranium One deal, and again, the cover-up is being exposed about the illegality that was going on, and I share the same concerns that you do. But you know, can we trust these people? I mean, we have Mueller, we have McCabe, we have Rosenstein. We have these people were involved in Uranium One. They're involved in looking at Trump. I mean, I'm very worried that we will never find the truth, because you have Paul Manafort. He was working for Trump. He's buddy-buddy with the Podesta brothers. I got a feeling everybody is going to collectively cover their back end, and they'll find a scapegoat. That's what my worry is. What's yours? Go ahead, Robin.
Peter, my worry a couple months ago was that Donald Trump was going to fire Mueller. But right now, I think the best thing that he's doing is allowing this investigation to proceed, just so that we can leave no stone unturned. Because, like I said, these things can go anywhere. What I do know is that as far as the donations to the Clinton Foundation, those came from Guista, and they sold their stake in that in 2007. That was 18 months before Secretary Clinton became Secretary of State, so I don't think there's an issue there. But like I said, leave no stone unturned. We need to clear Donald Trump's name if he's innocent. We need to clear Hillary Clinton's name if she's innocent. We
have stakeholders in Uranium One is already a known fact. They contributed large sums of money to the Clinton Foundation. That is already an established fact here. It was covered up, okay? Now we know it here. I don't, is it an innocent transaction? I don't know. I'm not going to be an irresponsible person like people in American media. I'm not going to say one way or another because I don't know. And for 1 year, I've been asking for facts to talk about, not this endless speculation, this endless sermonizing and demonizing that only hurts U.S.-Russia relations, and it really damages America's democracy and journalism. Alexander, reflect upon that as we rapidly run out of time. Thank you. I want to be fair to you, okay? Alexander, reflect upon what I had to say. Go ahead.
Yes, well, there's two things. First of all, I think you're absolutely right to be concerned that we're not going to get the whole truth, because it is absolutely the case that we have elite people investigating themselves. Mueller, Rosenstein, all of these people, as you absolutely rightly say, McCabe, were involved in the previous investigation, and I don't think it is disputed that the Uranium One affair was not given the kind of publicity, perhaps, that it should have been. And again, I'm not prejudging it. I'm not saying, you know, that this happened or that it was wrong, whatever. But it didn't get the kind of publicity perhaps it should have done. If we're turning to the FBI and to the fact that it outsourced all these things, I think the important thing to remember about the FBI is that it is also primarily a police agency.
But it should
the
be
CIA
but it should be apolitical. But it needs to be apolitical.
It should be apolitical. It should be apolitical, and as a police agency, which is required to put evidence that has to be placed before a court of law, it should carry out its own investigations. It should not outsource them to other people. I have never heard in my life of anything like that happening. I am sure it doesn't happen anywhere else, or shouldn't
well,
be
Alexander,
happening anywhere else.
I think, you know, I think all of us would agree on this program that we live in the age of unbelievable, which never, at every single step of the way. H.A., let me go to you, and I don't want to be flippant here, but I'm going to propose something to you, and I want your reaction. How would you feel that if Bernie Sanders were asked to head a special commission, a special prosecutor to look at all of this, including Mueller? What would you say to that? I think Bernie would do a good job. Go ahead.
He would do a great job, but the United States government needs to, A, have possession of the DNC servers so they can conduct forensics on their own, not trust a DNC-acquired company named CrossTalk.
Do you think they still exist in one piece after all this time? Do you believe that?
Probably not.
No, because
but that's the thing. The DNC.
I'm sorry. I'll be partisan here. You know, Democrats and technology hammer, smash, hammer, smash. And I'm just saying that based on facts, what people have said here, okay? And I really worry that this tampering of evidence has occurred, and again, in the hands of the authorities. You know, Robin, this is what I worry most. You know, presidents come and go. Candidates come and go. But when you see these agencies so politicized or seemingly politicized, that is the greatest danger here. Not outside meddling from other countries or $100,000 in Facebook ads or Twitter. I mean, I think that is just ludicrous, okay? I worry about how the institutions of the country are eroding because your candidate didn't win? Really? Go ahead, Robin.
Yes, this is my greatest concern. Also, this is an American concern. This is not actually a partisan problem. What I'm actually most
I think it's
glad
very,
to see right
very,
now is that this is being taken seriously.
It's very partisan,
well,
my
this is
friend.
being taken seriously now.
I mean, you know, Robin, watch CNN
Donald Trump
and watch
denied
Fox. I mean, and you have so different worlds right now. I worry about that, too. Nobody even wants to talk about the same group of facts anymore. 20 seconds, Robin, my friend. Go ahead.
Donald Trump denied for the longest time and said that Russian meddling was a hoax. Right now, I think we've got Exhibit A that we need to take this seriously. It could be occurring on both sides. We don't know. So let's leave no stone unturned.
Okay, but when we use a hoax, we should have evidence to say yes or no, and we still don't have it yet. We're going to stay on this story at CrossTalk. Many thanks to my guests in Los Angeles, Atlanta, and London. And thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time. And remember, CrossTalk rules.